Good to see you again. Hope you've been well, and if you're one of the folks who jumped into Monster Hunter Wilds over the weekend, I hope you've been enjoying yourself. Monster Hunter Wilds released probably a week ago by the time this video was coming out to an incredibly wide reception, smashing records on Steam, clearing concurrent player count records set by Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, and a whole bunch of other games that were some of the biggest hits of recent years, and yet, the game is sitting right now on Tuesday night at a mixed review score on Steam with only 59% positive reviews. And yet, as I'm writing this, the game currently has the second highest concurrent player count at almost 500,000, putting it just below Counter-Strike, which, let's face it, Counter-Strike is always on top, except for that one weird day last year when Outworld was dominating. So what's going on? I wouldn't expect a game with a 59% positive review score to be doing so well. Well, now that I've completed the main low-rank story campaign and have gotten my feet wet in the high-rank hunts, I think I have the answer. But instead of just giving you the short version, I kind of want to take this opportunity to talk about all the main complaints that early reviewers have had with the game and discuss how much each of these is contributing to that nasty review score on Steam. I've picked 3 topics to break down so we can see where most of the complaints are. It's mostly the last one. It's always the last one. All YouTubers are the same and I'm no different. So let's get started with the story first. If you're paying attention to the discourse online, you'll probably notice there's more than a few people who weren't big fans of it. And I will say the story is definitely not a masterpiece, and I do understand why it's been a little divisive. Your mileage with it will probably vary. However, previous Monster Hunter games aren't known for their narratives, so I personally had low to mild expectations myself. I was here mostly for the gameplay. That said, I was pretty on board for most of the story. The fully rendered cutscenes were pretty good in my opinion. I think one of the key strengths of these was that throughout the narrative, your character got to be a badass. So much so that by the final chapter, I was getting really hyped every time Alma looked my way and started saying the guild authorizes you to hunt the next monster. I thought there were a really good amount of these really hype moments sprinkled throughout, and I came away a lot happier than I thought I would at the end of the story. That said, it's fair enough for people to feel differently. I will admit there are dialogue scenes that happen outside of the pre-rendered cutscenes where your character is locked onto their chocobo and you just have to sit there riding your bird, listening and taking in the scenery. This again was something I actually personally didn't mind most of the time, but I think this will be less popular than the epic, choreographed cutscene moments, and that's fair enough. I've been browsing r/Monster Hunter quite a bit for the past few days though, and for every complaint about the story that I see, there's another post highlighting someone's favorite cutscene or favorite moment from the story, so I really wouldn't say that the story drags this game down very much, if at all. But that's just me personally. Again, I won't pretend like there aren't some instances where you get locked into just riding on rails to your destination with your friends that really did fall flat for me, but that had more to do with the scenery looking kind of gross due to some of the PC performance issues. But before I get to the performance stuff, I really want to talk briefly about difficulty in this game. I've heard a lot of people going back and forth on this one, and I find myself somewhere in the middle. The low-rank story missions are definitely very approachable. There's no mistaking about it. But they're low-rank story missions, right? So I think that's okay that they're approachable. Also, I will say, once you make it about 1/3 or half the way into the story, there's a noticeable increase in challenge that I think is at least on par with Rise, if not harder. If anything, I would say it's really just that your Palico has gotten stronger in this game, and the Sacred speeds up fights quite a bit for you. And it's much less so the case that the monsters themselves were actually weak or easy in the campaign, or at least that's kind of how I felt. And whether or not you thought the fights were hard, they were definitely really cinematic as hell, except when they weren't. And yeah, fuck it, I'm just gonna get right into it. The performance in this game sucked on release. Oh god. I really can't avoid it any longer. The performance on PC at least was just really bad on release, which honestly was a real shame because the graphics configuration options in Wilds are awesome. the graphics in the game should be awesome. They have all the little details laid out in menus like you'd expect in a modern AAA title, but they also have a little window on the side with examples of what each setting specifically affects in the game, and they have these little pips that pop up to show what component of your PC is most affected by that setting, as well as how much VRAM is being used up by your selected settings in the top right corner. So for someone like me who is not super informed on like which particular graphical settings do exactly what, this was all amazing. Or it would have been. It would have been great actually if it had actually worked. I spent so much time in the game fiddling with these settings, but even with ray tracing turned off and most of my settings turned to low, performance on PC was just bad. Especially when it came to rendering textures. Even from the very beginning, I was having issues with frame drops in weird spots and like these weird artifacts showing up on the screen doing this kind of effect. Sometimes just for a moment, but oftentimes they seemingly couldn't be fixed without restarting the game. And the further I got in the game, the worse it got. And I've talked to a couple of my other friends about this as well, and they've had very similar issues as well as some crashes on their PCs, which fortunately I didn't have. I don't know if I can chalk that up to having a pretty recent PC. By no means like a very high-end machine. I'm running a 4060 Ti. Not high-end, but very current and modern. And yeah, again, not high-end, but pretty decent. Should be good enough to run a game coming out in current year, right? It's still pretty close to the game's release, so I don't want to get into specifics with naming the zones. I'll just say that the third zone was by far the worst for me. I was getting texture issues and frame rate drops in base camp, and even after restarting the game and the issues seemingly being fixed, I would start to run into the same issues again halfway through a hunt without even leaving that area. So yeah, a lot of disappointment here. I do want to make it clear though, this is just my experience. I do feel like I'm far from alone in experiencing these issues. If you want to see a really detailed breakdown of how poorly this game ran on release, then you should check out Digital Foundry's video. I'll link it in the little doobly-doo below. Hit subscribe and the bell and like and all that good stuff while you're down there. Now, fortunately, there was a patch that released this morning that supposedly fixed some of the graphical errors. I did manage to hop in for a little bit before I recorded this, and I was having better luck today rendering textures, but there are still some noticeable glitches here and there with weird artifacts popping up, even with frame generation turned off. All this to say, I think the game has kind of earned its mixed reviews. The reception to this game initially looked really positive in many early reviews, and I understand why. And I'm sorry that this video has taken a little bit of a negative turn in the second half, but there is a lot of great game here. And if your PC can power through the performance issues, then you might not have been bothered as much, or maybe if you're playing on console, I don't know how much these issues are persisting there. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to talk about combat in this video, and I also wanted to avoid spoilers in the story. I may make a video in the future talking about that kind of stuff, but right now I just want to reiterate that I've really enjoyed most of my time in the game so far. When the graphics weren't performing well, it really detracted from the game immensely. And at this point in current year, it really feels like there's no excuse. Capcom, I know, are not the first devs to have these issues with their game on launch, but it still sucks, and it puts a huge damper on an otherwise amazing product. I don't know, man. Hopefully it all gets fixed soon, because the potential that this game has is really incredible. But I base this video mostly off of my own experiences and what I've heard from a few of my friends. So if your experience has been different, let me know. I want to hear from you guys, especially if your experience was different than mine. Leave a comment down below and let's talk about it. Anyways, thanks for watching, dudes. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. Ooh, the video's over, but the guy's still on the screen. Yes, I am. Hello, my friends. It is me, the Grimbly Bimbly. in the flesh. I wanted to pop in here at the end of the video, which I hope you guys enjoyed, to do a little bit of housekeeping. If you're new to the channel, welcome. This is going to be a little confusing for you. If you are subscribed to me, or if you've been following me anywhere in what I do, you may have noticed that I haven't really been doing too much the past couple months. Um, Ever since like right before Christmas, I kind of dropped off. And so, just in case you're wondering where I am, or if you're just curious about what I want to kind of plan to do with my channel and with my content going forward, stick around. And if you don't, farewell, love you, have fun. Subscribe on your way out, of course. But yeah, let's get down to the housekeeping stuff. So just to kind of organize where I want to go with this, I want to kind of reiterate what the purpose of my channels are, which is really just to share the games that I'm interested um, in an entertaining and thoughtful way, hopefully, and in a way that invites discussion. That's really it. That's the whole thing. Um, so with that in mind, I kind of have to. I've had to take a step back recently and evaluate where is my content, and is it doing what I want it to do. And I think last year we made a really strong attempt that I'm really proud of, um, to get out multiple videos every month. There was like a month or two in there that we did miss, um, just because I am like a full-on adult outside of YouTube and the internet, and I have like a real job with work that piles up very quickly sometimes. That I have to prioritize because this doesn't pay my bills, that does. So for the most part, I'm really proud of the fact that we had a lot more consistency last year than I ever have doing online stuff before, which was really really cool. Um, Unfortunately, uh, I think meeting that goal kind of pushed me to an area where I I look back at some of the videos and stuff that I did last year, and I think I've been thinking a lot about how I could have done it better. I think there's one example that comes to mind, I guess, right off the top of my head is with the Dragon Age Inquisition stuff. Before the release of Veilguard, we wanted to, or I wanted to play through Inquisition, and we thought it would be a good idea to put it out as kind of like almost like a vlog style thing, um, which I think worked really well for what it was because at the time I was doing a lot of overtime, and I really just, even if we hadn't been doing it that way, I would not have had the time to make like a really awesome, really highly well produced single video encapsulating all of Inquisition. That would have been a lot more work. So just going along at that pace was what I needed at the time. Um, but I think I would rather look back now and I would rather see one really, really good video talking about my dedicated playthrough through Inquisition. Um, I think that would have been really, really cool. And with that in mind, I also want to focus a little bit more on games that I actually am interested in. I don't often do this, or I didn't in the past, where I would get kind of absorbed by like, what's the big game of this month? Um, I think we're probably going to scale back from doing stuff like that. If I do happen to pick up the game of the month, and if I do happen to really, really love it, then yeah, I probably will make a video about it. But if I happen to pick up a game that's, oh, this is a big release this month, and it just doesn't like really, really click with me, I probably won't bother making something about it because it's just going to take away from the time and the energy that I could put into making something that I really, really do care about. So, what does that mean for you guys? What does that mean for the channel? Well, basically, we're probably going to have a little bit longer wait times in between videos. But hopefully, the idea is they're going to be more engaging and a little bit more fun to watch. So, I think that's a trade-off I'm willing to make. I think that's a trade-off that is going to pay off for the channel. Yeah, I think that's just the smart thing to do. I've talked about this with Jen, my friend who helps me edit this stuff, and she's on board with that. So I think that's going to be the idea going forward, is videos that are centered more around discussions and like if there's like a discourse around a game that really appeals to me, I'd love to, weigh in on that kind of stuff. But I don't want to make videos that are just like, the dev said this, and that's not good enough, isn't it? So that's kind of like where I'm the direction I'm trying to push the channel in. Um, to make up for this infrequency, I am going to start dedicating certain days of the week to streaming. I haven't nailed down a schedule yet, but if you want to see that and if you want to keep up with that, you should go over to my Twitch. I think Twitch is where I'm going to be doing like just the whatever streams. I have an idea in my head of doing like dedicated weekly or bi-weekly YouTube streams. But YouTube streams I think require a little bit more preparation and planning. So if you guys have ideas of things that would make for good YouTube streams, go ahead and leave them down below. I'm going to be doing a little bit of brainstorming on my own, seeing if I can think of something. But that may or may not come to fruition. It all just kind of depends. But definitely, if you want to keep up with what I'm doing, especially if you want to see me do more Monster Hunter stuff, I'm going to be doing that on Twitch probably like right after I finish recording this. So hopefully I'll see you there. Which is a weird thing to say because you'll have already seen me by the time this video comes out. Videos are kind of like time travel, aren't they? Anyways, guys, listen, I really appreciate it. If you sat through this whole thing, you're the absolute best. Love you. Hugs and kisses. Mwah.